You are tuned into the Dr. Tyna Show with Dr. Tyna Moore. For more, visit drtyna.com. On this episode of the Dr. Tyna Show, I am sitting down with my friend Jen Cohen. You may know her better as the Habits and Hustle podcasting host. She's also an author, a TEDx speaker, a serial entrepreneur, a brand strategist, a best-selling author, and so much more. She also may be the one who got my Instagram back for me. So it was such an honor to have her on the show. We had so much fun. This is more of a girlfriends talking and just chewing the fat kind of episode. And I think you're really going to enjoy it because we both get to share and throw out a lot of great ideas that we utilize to be bolder, bigger, better, stronger, more tenacious, more successful, more entrepreneurial, and how we weave fitness into the day-to-day. And she gives us some really great tips and tricks on how to bring more boldness into your life and more tenacity. So without further ado, let's jump in. Jen Cohen, welcome to the Dr. Tyna Show. I am so excited to have you here today. You are near and dear to my heart in a very short amount of time. And I'm going to tell the audience a short story. But first, will you introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about you? You're kind of, you don't really need an introduction, but you're kind of a badass babe. And I want people to hear how you got here. Tell us a bit about your story.
Sweet. You're very nice. You're very kind. Well, my story, I have a podcast called Habits and Hustle, which I'm sitting underneath now. And I just wrote a book called Bigger, Better, Bolder, which is about being bold, asking for what you want in life, chasing what you want. It's not just taking what you get. My background is very much heavily influenced by health, fitness, wellness. I had a couple companies in this space. I sold them, and I kind of really evolved my business. And I've used fitness, I think, as one of my core habits of how I've become even a little bit successful, and how I think that, when people are incorporating healthy habits, when they're incorporating fitness into their lives, it does actually incrementally increase someone's success, both physically and mentally, but also professionally and personally. And I really try to merge the two. I merge the entrepreneurship, the productivity, and the habits that get you there, like fitness, like all the other things in that realm.
Like doing the hard things.
Hard things, exactly.
Yeah, I'm so in line with this. I was really excited to meet you because you were kind enough to have me on your podcast at the beginning of September. And that was the week that I had lost my Instagram, and I had been having these ragey fits of tears the whole week. And I'm not one to cry or complain or ever play victim, but I was pretty pissed. And my face was really swollen. And I remember waking up Monday morning to get on the plane, and we live really far away from the airport. So like a trip to the airport's a big ordeal, and I thought, I don't know if I can go. Like, I don't know if I can show up to this podcast looking like this. I was so just swollen and out of sorts. And I thought, you know what? I need an infusion of what Jen's got, because Jen is such a badass babe. And I followed you on Instagram for a long time, and I love what you stand for. And I was like, I need some of that. I need to be around it. Something great will come from this. I'm going to do it. And I show up and I tell you what happened, and you're like, oh, I got this. No worries. Let me call someone. And boom, my Instagram came back on. So for everyone listening, I owe Jen a massive amount of gratitude, and I thank you forever for helping me with that. There were a lot of people working on it that week, but I think you may have been the magic lever that got pulled. So,
listen, I think I'm happy it worked out, and I'm happy it came back up. But I know, like, that the social media has become a lifeline for everybody, right? Like a lot of us. And so I know when that happens and when that goes down, it is the most frustrating, irritating thing in the world. So if I could have been a part of any help, if at all, I'm happy to do so.
I appreciate it. Yeah. It was very Canadian of you.
Yeah, very Canadian. Exactly. That's right. Very Canadian of me. Us Canadians. I come from friendly Manitoba, so that should tell you something right there.
Well, I know some Canadians, and I know quite a few, and there is a grittiness and just a tenacity in most of the Canadians I know. They don't give up easily. And I felt that from you. And then I heard your accent as we were talking a little bit. And I was like, oh, that's it. She's Canadian. That's what it is. The kindness and the resiliency that you guys possess, I think, as a whole is always admirable. So I'm just going to go. I was watching your TED Talk and I did some background looking into, the OG version of Jen Cohen. And I heard you say that you really wanted to be a VJ on Much Music, which I love that channel. By the way, I would intermittently get it here in the United States, like over the many years. And it was easily better than MTV any day. And you have a great story that really exemplifies this boldness and bravery and tenacity that you speak of. And it revolves around the Uber babe, Keanu Reeves. Every time I see him, I'm like, Keanu's such a babe. Will you tell a little bit about that story? Because I think it really showcases what it is that you're about.
Oh, yeah. So it's so funny because I did that talk. But weirdly enough, by the way, Tina, I don't even know if you know this. I did another TED Talk a week ago. It hasn't even been out. It hasn't come out yet. It comes out
Amazing.
Maybe, on something totally different. But my first one was called The Secret to Getting Anything You Want in Life. And it went viral. And I think it went viral because the story of it was so, I think it was endearing to so many people. But the long and the short of it was, I did want to be a VJ, and Keanu Reeves was visiting my hometown, like we talked about, I'm Canadian, and I knew that if the job was the job that Much Music, they were doing a nationwide search for the next VJ, and that means like thousands and thousands of people are going to apply, and I knew that in that search and in the audition, in that process, you would have to stick out amongst a lot of people to get noticed, right? And so I thought to myself, how am I, this, average teenager, going to stick out enough where Much Music executives are going to give me a shot or a chance at even being noticed to even potentially get this job? And at that time, Keanu Reeves was in my hometown doing a play for Shakespeare, and he was at the height of his fame. Although he's never really lost that height of fame, he still is as famous as ever. And I told my friends and everyone that I wanted to go up to basically tell Keanu to help me with my audition tape, with my demo tape. And of course, everyone laughed at me and thought I was crazy and whatever else. And I just didn't even think anything of it. I thought, why can't I ask him? It didn't even occur to me that it would be something that would be, it would be weird or awkward or difficult. Because I knew where he was performing. He was at the Manitoba Theatre Center. And so, but it was -40. And I basically went to the place where he was performing. I waited outside for an hour. And I had frostbite all over my body, but eventually he came out, and all the press was around, all the media was around. And at that time, there was no such thing as social media. And I basically tugged on his jacket, and he said, you got to wait in line. Everyone's looking for an autograph. And I was very naive, I guess. And I was like, I don't want your autograph. That's not why I'm here. I need your help on this demo tape. And he was very taken aback and very confused. And I kept on saying it over and over again. And he was trying to move away from the conversation. I was kind of following him along. And he's like, just give me your phone number. I will just write your phone number and I will call you about it. And I was like, you're not going to call me. Why are you saying that? Blah, blah. Next thing you know, I took a lip liner, wrote it on a gum wrapper, handed it to him. And everyone laughed at me, mocked me. I went to school the next day, the second day, third day, nothing. And on the fourth day, I came home and checked my voicemail, my answering machine at the time. And he called me. And next thing you know, cut to, my mom is making Keanu lunch in my house. And I'm interviewing Keanu for my demo tape with my 3 amateur camcorders and my friends around the room. And next thing you know, that was my demo tape. And it actually worked out. The reason why I even told that story, though, was the bigger thing, which is the fact that don't count yourself out without even trying, and you never know what can happen unless you try. And if it can happen to someone else, it can happen to you. And I think a lot of times, and what my overall arching message in the world is that, we tend to give everybody else this idea and this we put everyone else on these pedestals and think that everything can happen to everyone else. And everyone else is so wonderful and great, but everyone's the same. And the only difference between you and me is that, or someone else and me, is that they never gave up. And you just can't quit. Like it's the quitters that don't get to the goal, right? It's when you just are, if you are tenacious and persistent, things will happen if you just kind of if you kind of keep on going. And so my whole message is be bold. Being bold is what gets you to the finish line. It's not intelligence. It's not all these other fancy tricks and traits. It's really very simple, and anybody can have it. Anybody could hone that skill of being bold. And that's kind of like what my platform has kind of taken off to be about.
I love that so much. It's how I've led my whole life. Like it's just, I just don't take no for an answer. My mom taught me when I was very young. She said the worst thing anyone can say to you is no. And I was like, well, that's not that bad. I don't care, And then I had a friend recently telling me how amazing it was to watch how hard I've worked to get to where I am. She's like, you just never quit. And I was like, oh no, I'm a terrier. I will get the frickin' bone. I don't care how I dig it up. I don't care what angle I need to get at it. I will get the bone. And that's the difference between me and so many other people who don't get where they want to go, because failure is not really a bad word to me. It's just another opportunity to try a different route,
Right. Well, failure to me also is, honestly, I'm immune to the idea and to the thought of it. Like I'm desensitized. And I think if people can get themselves to a place where they can become desensitized to the idea of what failure is or to what that stigma is, they can get much further than they ever anticipated, right? But the stop is in the start so often. We don't even allow ourselves to even make the attempt. We don't even allow ourselves to even make the attempt or make a second attempt. So we just count ourselves out. When the reality is, like, again, the people who actually succeed are the terriers in life. It's the ones who just don't take no for an answer. And it's not about talent. It's not about smarts. It's about just doing the work and doing it over and over again.
Yep. And if you fumble or if you fall, you just get up and wipe off your scruffed knees. I think that's part of it, though. How were you as a kid growing up? Because I was a scrapper. I mean, I'd get in fights. I'd get skinned up. I'd fall off bikes. I'd fly off the monkey bars. I didn't care.
Right. I mean, I think I was a little bit more fearful in that respect, but you know what? Like I was always someone who was very inquisitive and very curious. Like I was always interested in people, and I would ask questions constantly. And that's how you learn. Like to me, it's like the way you find opportunity is through asking questions. You don't know what opportunities even exist unless you ask questions to get you there. Like to me, it was the gateway. It was a gateway drug to any type of anything I ever succeeded in life, because what you don't know. And that to me, I think was the secret sauce, was the curiosity that led me into not feeling shy and to ask, even if I look stupid. I think a lot of times people have so much fear of looking dumb or shameful of looking like, being stupid. So they don't even ask the question or put themselves in these awkward positions. And like I said, I never cared about that. Like I didn't care how stupid I looked. I mean, to me, it kind of didn't faze me. And that was, again, that worked to my advantage, as I'm sure, like you said, you just being scrappy worked to your advantage.
Yeah. I think I could learn something from that too, because it's the asking the questions. And I always was taught that was being nosy, and don't be nosy. And I really am truly curious and I want to know things. And so I do try, and I probably could do better. An example is in my business. I only just learned that there's certain people that I can hire to do certain things that I've been trying to figure out on my own forever. Like there's people that are, oh, sorry, my dogs are,
Yeah.
I got a little puppy Havanese over here, and he likes he gets into it with my bigger dog. She's a little grumpy. But just realizing that if you don't ask and you don't keep looking, that you're not going to find the answers either. So why not? Why not just get out there and try? And I don't ever have an issue with looking dumb, but I I feel like I'm missing some kind of filter there because I got asked the other day by somebody, they said, have you ever struggled with imposter syndrome? And I was like, no,
Yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah.
wouldn't even know what that feels like. Cause I just know what I know and I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not very good at, and I know that I could probably find the people who are good at the things I'm not good at. So we could continue on the journey, you know? So
Yeah.
how do you feel about imposter syndrome and when people bring that up? Cause I see that a lot in the coaching I've done.
I love that you just said that. That is so funny that you bring that up. I see why you and I are friends because to me, the idea of imposter syndrome, I don't think that hard and deeply with that, right? Like I think that, I think what I think is important is trying to become, if you're not already, self-aware, knowing yourself, know thyself, right? Because I'm a big believer in knowing what you're good at and like leaning really hard into those things, also knowing what you're bad at, and then very quickly finding people to help you with those weaknesses to kind of achieve what you're trying to achieve. And so I'm okay with that. So the idea of imposter syndrome, I don't really know if it really, I don't know if that works for what I'm about, because like I actually think I'm bad at a lot of things, and no matter where I get, like it's not going to change that. I'm just really good at being good at what I'm good at, and then finding people who help me very well on what I'm bad at. And so therefore I don't really, I know that's a thing, and I think it's become very Instagram hashtag worthy, this whole idea of imposter syndrome. But I don't ever think about it in those regards.
No, and I think it's just reps. Like this goes back
It
to
is, it's
fitness.
reps.
It's just reps, right?
Yeah, I think anything is like practice, right? Anything you do more and more of, you get better at, and things that you kind of like don't, you atrophy in, like that is the reality, And to me, I focus on for me, I think it's more of a fact that like, if I'm interested in something, I'll put more reps in that than the other things that I'm not interested in.
Yes, like we like to maybe squat or deadlift more than we like to do the other. So then we do too much of that.
Yeah, that's 100%. Well, you're a fitness person too, correct? Like you do
Yeah.
that stuff too.
Yeah.
And that's true, right? Like you end up, I don't do the exercises that I know I should do because, if I don't like them, I'm not going to do them, right? And then you get dominant in one area and less in something else. So, by the way, you said earlier, you're like, I have a Keanu Reeves story. What's yours?
Oh yeah. Okay. So something that when I was young in high school and then in college and then onward, I've met a ton of musicians that I love because I would just get myself backstage, I would talk my way back there. I never did anything that was inappropriate. But other than that,
Yeah.
I was determined. I would get
Yeah.
myself backstage. And 9 times out of 10, I would meet somebody and be actually pretty disappointed. Like they were either, I don't know, like maybe just way too high or way too sleazy or just, I don't know, not, it gets kind of a bummer sometimes. But one day my dad's so cute. My parents live in Beaverton, which is a suburb of Portland. And that's where I grew up and went to high school. And my dad travels for work. Or he did at the time quite a bit when I was in high school. So I didn't get to see him much. And he would come home and it was almost like he was a stranger to me at this point because he was gone so often. And he comes home one day and he said, "Oh, I got to tell you something." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "I met Keanu Reeves." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "Yeah, I met Keanu Reeves at the Tom's Pancake House." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And there's this little pancake house in Beaverton. And I guess Keanu was there filming My Own Private Idaho way back in the day.
Wow.
I was like a senior in high school. And I guess he was sitting at the counter and my dad looked at it. My dad's not starstruck. My dad's like an old school, like MAGA guy,
Yeah.
Like my dad and I just always fought over politics until I sort of came around to I'm very much a libertarian at this point, but, and my dad's become a little more, I think we all just want to be left alone, and he is so cute. He said, "I saw Keanu at the counter and I thought, that's Keanu Reeves. I'm going to go talk to him just so I can go home and tell my daughter. She'll be so jealous." So he goes up and sits next to him and they have lunch together. And Keanu's just the nicest guy in the entire world to my dad. And he's, obviously quite a bit younger than my dad. Very respectful, very kind. My dad had a lovely lunch with him and he shook his hand and came home and was like, there were no cell phones or anything, so he couldn't get a picture. But he came home and he's like, "Yeah, I just wanted to let you know I met Keanu." And it just is tested. Like, that's how I was raised. My dad is, that's how I am. Like, I see something and I'm like, I'm going to go try. I mean, what's the worst they can say? No. Right. So
Yeah.
there it was. So my dad was like, yeah, he kind of did it for me, just so we would have a Keanu Reeves story.
Yeah, you know what's really funny about this, right? Like I think, we got lucky. I got lucky in that because I just so happened to be the one celebrity or star that so happens to be super kind and nice. It could have had a whole different trajectory, right? If I picked someone who's a real jerk off and they didn't even pay attention, right? But it's funny because how this is much more of an indication of how in life it's like how one thing is a ripple effect for everything else, right? If one thing happens in the right manner, then it takes on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And the Keanu thing was just that thing that gave me that bolster of confidence or that pivotal moment, right? Where it's like, you know what? If you don't ask, you don't get. And it proved that point. So then you lean in super hard to that, right? If it was the alternative and name it Brad Pitt and he was like, screw off girl, lady, whatever, and it didn't go well, I would be like, well, I made an ass of myself. It's funny how like in life that happens, isn't it?
Yeah. And I also think that to add to it, when you're trying to do something great, other people who do great things will acknowledge that in you. And it's something that a lot of people don't realize. It's like if you go to the gym and you're there and you're intimidated and you don't know what to do and you're over by the squat rack, those dudes and ladies, now there's more ladies in that region usually than there used to be when I was growing up. We had like a little pink weight room just for the girls when I was growing up here in Portland. People will help you. Like if you're showing that you are trying to better yourself, that you have skin in the game, that you've thrown your hat in and that you're giving your best effort, the people around you who also give their best efforts every single day in their lives will help you level up. And you just don't get to hang out with those people if you're not of that, of that way. Like if you're just not made of that, then those people will ignore you. But if you are, then the other bigger players or the other people who are also, it's kind of like social media. You can't really grow on social media unless you're really having skin in the game and you're showing up consistently, because then the other bigger accounts will see that and they will support you and help you grow. But if you're just showing up intermittently or if you're just showing up randomly at the gym, it's kind of the same. People won't respect you as much. At least that's what I've learned in my life.
Yeah, I also think taking pride in what you do in general, right? Like that's it. Like being consistent, taking pride in what you're doing, taking it like being professional, taking it seriously. I think a lot of people half-ass a lot of things,
Yeah.
right? And then they wonder why they don't get the results, or they wonder why they're not making the inroads with people. Like to your point, if someone shows me like earnest effort, there's no chance I'm going to ever turn them down to assist them, right? If they're honest and earnest and like, it's like it's coming from the right place, versus people who I think who don't put the work in, who are entitled and they think things should come easily. You're not interested. You don't want to be around them. You don't want to help them. And like social media is social media is interesting. It's like a microcosm in a way to the rest of the world, like how the rest of the world works, right? It's really interesting how that is.
Yeah, and the same in the gym. If you show up day after day, I remember when I went into the gym, I was 40 when I started lifting, like my late 30s, early 40, year of my early 40th on the planet. And I had no idea what I was doing in there. And I had a coach, but I still didn't know it took me like a good 2 years to figure out how to even create tension in my body, and which is odd because I was a gymnast, which does go back to that tenacity. Like in gymnastics, if you don't fully visualize the entire move or tumbling routine and you don't have it set in your head, you're going to fall on your face. You're going to fall on your head. Like if you go launching yourself through the air in a flippity doodah, if you don't have yourself sticking it and landing in your head, you're going to end up upside down and sideways and land on your neck. So
wow.
It's kind of that way in life, I've noticed, and it's that way in business. And when I started going to the gym, I just had it was predominantly men back then, all these nice men helping me. And they weren't trying to get anything out of me. It wasn't sexual or anything. They just were genuinely trying to help me out. And they would start by picking the 45 plates up for me because they thought I couldn't lift it. And I was like, no, this is part of the workout. I'm going to figure this out.
That's hilarious.
And it was just a it was just a stepwise process like anything else. And not being afraid to look dumb, not being afraid to be a beginner, not being worried about that. Because the thing with the beginnings of anything is that we all had a beginning, right? Like you started in the gym at
Absolutely.
some point and you didn't know what the hell you were doing.
No, I didn't, and also I started by accident myself. But the funny thing is that you said something. Were you like a legit gymnast, like professional level? Like, were you serious about it?
Well, I was serious about it until I got so many injuries that my mom pulled me out and said no more. So I think my health was poor and it really threw off my balance. So I started getting some pretty serious injuries. So there went that. I
Well,
was
not.
pretty young.
How young were you?
Mm, probably 10 or 11.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
But
I
that
was
was
gonna.
back when you had to be, all gymnasts were very young back then. So that was like old for a gymnast.
Really, yeah. That's actually, yeah. I just find that when people have athletic, like were athletes, it, their life skills that you learn that are so transferable in life, right? The discipline, the patience, the, consistency necessary. You learn so many of these like foundational, fundamental life skills that take you through life. And that's what I found with fitness as well, by the way. And so like, when we were talking earlier about like what I do and all the other things, it's like, it's interesting because when I found fitness, fitness really kind of was, like I said, the gateway drug to like opening and helping me with all other areas in life because of the things that I learned and that I was taught through the process. And I think that sometimes people really under index how fitness helps them in all areas of life, right? Like because of those foundational, those life skills that you can learn if taken serious. I'm not saying going to the gym once a blue moon. I'm saying when you do it consistently, daily, habitually, it does morph and change your brain. And
Oh, yeah.
right. And it creates like you could become a beast mentally stronger than someone who doesn't do anything because of what you see yourself doing day to day.
It becomes like a sixth sense. It's a superpower. And it's a superpower that those who don't have strength is a superpower, and those who don't have it don't know what they're missing. And
Hmm.
it translates into everything, into every single thing. And my career and success, whether it was in the clinical setting or the online setting, all of it changed when I got fit. And when I walk into a room now, I demand a certain amount of respect that I don't demand it, I command it, I guess, just inadvertently through being in the room, standing upright, and having a certain level of fitness. I'm not the fittest I've ever been right now because I've just endured like so many injuries back to back and so much stress, but I'll get it back. It's in there, you
Right.
know?
Right.
But people really do respect you and treat you differently when you walk in a room and you're fit. It's a whole different world. And you have abilities in your brain and cognition that you don't have when you're not fit. And when my fitness is not being prioritized, my brain doesn't work nearly as well. My mood is not as good. It's not just about energy. It's not just about being happy. It's truly a sixth sense that I can't tap into if I do not train regularly.
No, I know. In fact, actually, like yesterday, I didn't work out, right? And I tend to try to do something every day. I try to sweat every day. And I will tell you, like, I was a mess. Like, I think that, like, you're just on serotonin alone, right? Like, I don't know, I was not as clear minded, like on all my business calls. I wasn't as focused because I didn't have that same fire. Like, my neurosynapse, like, the synapses in my brain weren't firing as well, right? I felt sluggish, I guess, because once you get to a place where you're doing something so habitually, when you don't do it and you actually crave and miss it, you see the difference between when you do something versus when you don't do something. And I always say to people that the more they think that they need to have energy to work out, but energy begets energy, right? Like if the more,
Yes.
right? So the more you work out, that will actually give you more energy, more ability to kind of have the stamina than otherwise.
100%. It's like a spark that you can spark up, but you have to move to do it. It's like a lighter. you have to roll the wheel on the lighter to get the lighter to light, right? You got to, so the movement itself is what creates that spark of energy. It doesn't come otherwise. And it's very interesting to watch those around you. You have young kids. It's probably super obvious to you when they haven't gotten enough movement during the day,
Yeah.
right?
Oh my God, totally. I mean, do you have kids though? I can't remember. Do you?
I have an adult daughter who doesn't like to exercise. And so it's, to me, it doesn't matter what's going on in her life. My answer is always, did you go work out? Are you going to go work out?
Yeah. Did she listen?
No, but she will. She'll come around. It's, she was never a big athlete, but she will. She always comes around. And I think she knows at the end of the day, I'm right. So we'll get there.
How old is she?
24.
Yeah. I find that once, it's like one of those things where it's really hard to start, but once you start, hope for those people who actually stick to it and do it, it's amazing what happens if you just stick to it long enough to get to that place,
Yeah. It's a little bit, it can be a little dicey at first, especially the older you are, or if you've got some orthopedic faults. It can get worse before it gets better. But yeah, getting there that's the journey though. This takes us back to the beginning of the conversation, which in my opinion, everything's just a journey. There's never a destination. So wellness and health and business, to me, it's all just a choose your own detective novel. Yeah. I'm just trying to weave and dodge as I go and have as much fun with it as I can. So everything's sort of an adventure to me. And I'm on a quest. That's what I call it. Like I'm on a quest. I'm on a quest to hit a financial goal, or I'm on a quest to hit, whatever it is, a number, on an arbitrary number. I'm very goal oriented. So I pick ridiculous goals. Even if I don't think I can hit them, I don't care, because at least it'll be better than if I set the goal too short,
Mm-hmm.
So
totally.
For me, and you got to be careful, especially with training. I would say I did chase the numbers on the barbell and I ended up hurting myself a few too many times. So, there's some rules around this, but I think that at the end of the day, it's like, why the hell not? Like we have one life to live, and YOLO. It's like every day's a YOLO.
It's true. I feel like women though tend to go towards cardio and not enough strength training, which does make a massive difference in age. And this is what you do for a living as well, right? Like as you age, the strength, the bone density is so important. And yet like we still have the psychological ideology that it's all about cardio, because we were raised to believe if you sweat and you like kill yourself with these, like with running and all these things, that's better. And I think that like, it's how I should add, not like you're on my podcast, but I was going to say to you, like, how do we switch that brain chemistry for women? Because women, we want to have our body competition to be sustained with lean muscle mass. But if we can just get women to be awake, to kind of like stop the cardio a little bit more and start with the strength training, it makes a massive difference in your overall wellness.
It makes a massive difference. This is my constant quest, is trying to get women to understand that they need to strength train. I was telling women to strength train. I was telling everybody to, deadlift and eat steak a long time ago. And it was not popular back then. And they were hearing, do yoga and be a vegan from the other online influencers. So it's like my lifelong conundrum. But I will say this, I think as we age, we start to feel that we're not immortal. We start to feel our mortality a bit more, and we start to get some hitches in our giddy up. And then it becomes apparent that we may have less years in front of us than we do behind us. And how do I want to get to that finish line? I certainly want my libido intact. I want my brain intact. I don't want someone wiping my ass. I don't want to break a hip. I don't want to have my vagina fall apart on me so that I can't enjoy my husband. Like, I don't want any of those things. I don't want to not be able to scale down a cliff, or, I've been hiking when I've had hip injuries and I couldn't hike. I couldn't go to the places I wanted to on the hike because I was injured. I just don't want any of that nonsense. So for me, it's just a non-negotiable, but I'm able to think long-term, and I don't know if everybody does. I think humans are really short-sighted, and they think all that they're worried about right now is their belly fat. And I'm like, dude, that's the last thing on my list. I mean, it'd be nice to have it gone, but to have no pain, to have my brain working, to have my, I'm sharp as a tack usually. And so having any of that compromised, and that's all through hormones and fitness. I mean, that's
It is. Well,
So
by the way, don't they say that, well, muscle is now the fountain of youth, right? Muscle.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's you look better, you feel better. There are some upsides to kind of, that cardio. I don't even know anymore where to send women to, because some are saying it's got to be all high intensity and others are saying steady state zone 2 and others are saying don't do that medium intensity, but just frickin' move, right? Just move and sweat and then pick up some heavy shit and put it down.
I know that the irony of everything is that we've overcomplicated things that are so simple.
Yeah.
And to make money, it's like a multi-trillion-dollar industry. So the more we overcomplicate it, the more money people make. When it's as basic as it comes, pick up heavy stuff and put it down. The new thing right now is this 12-3-30 thing. Do the incline at 12, at 3 miles an hour for 30 minutes. And that's like the way that people say is the best way to do your workout.
So
And
just steady state the whole time for 30 minutes?
30 at a 12 incline at 3.0.
That's
Now,
that's kind of hardcore.
I mean, listen, I think with anything though, your body will acclimate and then you're only hitting on one target for your cardio zone. But
Yeah.
I think it's really important. I think movement, like you said, is the most important thing. It doesn't matter if whatever you're going to hate less, do that. But if you're trying to see results and change your body composition, you cannot be doing the same thing over and over again. You need to mix it up because your body remembers all of it, right? And like anything, like your body becomes used to that. So if you do that, then you can do the sprints the next day. But the truth is, like, as you get older, I don't know about you, but like me, my body doesn't respond the same way because my cortisol levels spike when I do that. And I get hungry. I'm really hungry. I end up eating 75 times more calories just by that, right? So it's like a delicate balance of how to do it, right?
It's very true. That I'm so glad you brought that up because let's talk about that some more. Women just don't understand that they're tweaking out their cortisol and they're really shooting themselves in the foot in many ways. I'll often get women off of that kind of stuff, like women that are really into the Orange Theory or the high intensity CrossFit. I'm just like, let's just slow the roll here. Let's
Totally.
pull it back a little because I think that's and then the orthopedic concerns in there of some sprints are not available to me anymore. I tore the crap out of both my Achilles a couple of years ago, so like sprints are out. So I have to find other ways to get that intensity up that don't hurt me, and we don't want people getting hurt. So
well, this is what I find. I mean, so it's interesting that because all those Orange Theory, Barry's Boot Camp, all of these things, it's a great workout when you're young. I think as you age, though, it doesn't bode well. But I also think if you're looking at the bodies that are coming out of these places that are doing 5 days a week of that, it's actually not the ideal body type that women are even trying to get, which is the irony, right? It's like what's aesthetically pleasing to the eye as in now are people who are toned and fit and strong and lean, which you get from strength training with heavy weights, right? It's not from doing these classes, right? Because what happens in these classes, like we said, like your cortisol levels spike really high. You're just like you're just using your adrenal glands, and I think what happens is you end up eating more. Your body becomes hormonally unbalanced. You know about this, and it's the less of all evils. It's actually the most difficult thing to actually seek results from that you're looking to get. And it's bad for your joints. So, but again, I think that a lot of this is psychological and what we've been trained to believe actually works and gets the job done.
Agreed. So what would you say the pillars of, getting bigger, better, bolder, like what's the laydown of that?
Are we talking physically or mentally or both?
Just kind of summarize it all.
Well, okay. The book the book is really more about how to become bold. And that's really about, I give people this workbook of like steps to become bolder. So how to make boldness part of your life. Like I talk about how there's this thing called this 10% target. And the 10% target is basically you have to make 10 attempts at whatever you want most in life. And the idea is that most people don't make one attempt. Almost nobody makes 2 attempts. So if you're finally somebody who's actually going to make these 10 attempts, your chances of actually getting to what it is exceeds most other people. But really what the other thing it does, it's teaching somebody to get comfortable with the failure. So if you know, and the goal or the program is to make these 10 attempts, you already have that idea in your head. So it's like, now you're going to make these 10 attempts. So once you do the 1, the 2, the 3, you know you have to make 7 more. You know you have to make 6 more, 5 more. And the truth of the matter is, you may not get to that goal, but another opportunity will present itself that you never even knew existed, just by going through this game and this path. And so that's really the crux of what my book is about. How to, this 10% target, how to become more bold, how to like actually feel comfortable asking for what you want. And so I really try to give people these like small steps before you, it's like these small wins, right? Like it's not about climbing Mount Everest before you even like walk around the block, right? So it's like, how do you get from A to B to C in a way that's comfortable and that will actually feel okay by you, but you end up getting what you want, not just kind of acquiescing to what you get. So that's why I say, like, chase what you want. Don't just take what you get, because most people just settle for good enough. And that's the opposite of what I'm trying to instill in people.
I love that. And how does fitness tie into that? What does it kind of a general routine look like for you?
Well, for fitness, for me, it's about like how we have these daily routines and daily habits to optimize and make us feel as confident and present as possible, so we can go and conquer the world. So we can go like feel comfortable asking for what we want. And really, like the daily habit, and I think that we've gotten a little bit crazy with our daily routines, our morning routines. Some of these morning routines that I hear on my show and from my friends basically are so ridiculous and so long that it's like, how do you have time to even have a job if you have these morning routines and have children and have a family? It's like, I try to really kind of like break it down to the most fun, like the most important things, right? And to me, fundamentally, the most important habit that will basically become a ripple effect and set you apart from 99% of the people is to work out in the morning every day. And that will change the neuroplasticity in your brain. That will change your mood, your focus, your productivity levels 20-fold, where then you can go and conquer and at least try to make these attempts at the things you want in life. So that's where the exercise component comes in, including that piece.
You say AM.
Yeah, AM
okay.
For sure. Because you start like why not start the day off right? Like why start off on the wrong foot? Like, get that thing, knock it out first thing. It like changes your mood. You feel also accomplished. You did something for yourself. It makes you feel good about yourself. Like, okay, you know what? I actually did something. You have that sense of accomplishment that I can now, do the second thing, the third thing, the fourth thing, whatever it is, right? And by I know people say, well, some people weren't like it at night. Some people like it at night. Some people like it whenever you can do it. Yes, of course. Like, not everything's an absolute for everybody. However, for the majority of people, if we can figure out if we can do it in the morning, I think it really does set the tone for the rest of the day, the rest of the week, the rest of the month. And that's why that's an important step for me.
I love it. What are some others? What are your thoughts around nutritional habits?
Nutritional habits, I try to tell, mine is eat protein first thing in the morning, satiate yourself with protein. Look who I'm telling this to. This is, I'm sure, very similar to everything you say, like, right? Because if not, I find like whenever I don't do that, it throws me off. It throws off my nutrition for the rest of the day. I get hungrier, my insulin spikes. I try to grab the sugary muffin or the whatever that thing is. I drink double the amount of coffee. But if I can stabilize my blood sugar and eat something satiating, savory, like eggs in the morning, it does wonders for the rest of my day. So that's a big one for me as well.
I totally agree with you on that. I am notorious for skipping breakfast. And my husband recently has been just making me a simple couple eggs on a piece of sourdough and some cheese. It's so basic, but I am so much less anxious throughout the rest of the day. And it's not
Yes.
even just my blood sugar. Like I just am less, I feel less neurotic. I'm less triggered by things. I'm less set off by stressors. I just flow a lot more easily into the evening and I feel much more steady. And it's so funny because I was trying to do these longer extended fasts and they just don't serve women our age. I think, really going for long periods of time without food can be pretty devastating to our hormonal milieu. So I'm glad to hear you say, we're thinking the same. And I think that my listeners need to hear this from a couple different people. And so I'm glad we're in agreement on it.
Oh, I am. I mean, listen, I've been getting like hate mail over the last little while because I'm not an intermittent fasting person. I don't believe in intermittent fasting. I think it's really just a way to control someone's calories. That's really what it is. And I know they talk about autophagy and all these other things, but I think for women, what I've noticed on my own without being a doctor is that it may work for men, but I don't see it working well for women. I just think you end up having a lot of food noise. And if you are somebody who has disordered eating, if this is just another way to disorder your eating, because then you're like basically creating these windows where you're not allowed to eat when you are allowed to eat, and it's giving you that restriction. Like I'm someone, I know myself. I like to eat breakfast. I like to eat lunch. I like to have dinner. I like to also have a life. And like with these things, all it does is psychologically twist and turn you to a place where, all right, maybe even if you become 0.1% leaner, but you're not socializing, you're not going out, you're not having breakfast, you're not, then where's the like the joy and the enjoyment? Like everything in life is a balance, right? Like I'm not somebody who is this crazy mega extreme person. What I try to talk about and show people is that, you know what, like everything, you can do things in a balanced way. Like if you exercise daily, you don't have to be hardcore Olympian, but exercise daily. You know what I mean? Like have your protein in the morning, eat this, eat that. But overall, holistically, you'll be a happier person when you're not doing these crazy things because you saw some influencer on Instagram tell you to do these things. Do you know what I mean?
100%. I completely agree. I think the online space is sometimes so gross and confusing for people, and
It is.
and they want things polarized, right? They really want you to be hardcore on one side or the other, and I think it just confuses the heck out of everybody. So
because the algorithm picks up on it. That's why.
Yeah.
And the problem is we're having women who are 45 years old comparing themselves to a 21-year-old having a green smoothie from Erewhon and think that if they have that smoothie for $35, they're going to look like that, when they're not realizing that that person is a model who's getting paid by somebody to be drinking that thing.
Yep.
So
the Erewhon smoothies confuse the heck out of me. I don't understand the trend.
I don't either. And they're like $30 and it's full of sugar. And yet they're like, they're laughing all the way at the bank.
Yep. 100%. So what would be the last big tip that you would add to this to help folks become more bold in their day-to-day?
Number one, I would say when they go to a restaurant and they go for dinner, ask for what they want. I know it sounds very simple and trite, but like ask for the dressing on the side, ask for substituting the potato for whatever else you want. Be very specific and order off the menu. So to me, like I say a lot of the times, not to just to be a pain in the ass, but what I'm telling people is that like train your brain and train yourself to ask for what you want. And if you don't feel comfortable asking for those little things, you're never going to be comfortable asking for the bigger things in life. So when you go to a restaurant, don't even look at the menu. Say, can I have a chicken breast or a chicken sandwich or whatever that is, or with, I don't know, name your thing, with the salad. Just don't even use the menu only as a guideline to actually ask for what you want. Again, this is not because of the food part. It's really about the fact that like you're training your brain to get comfortable with the actual art of the ask.
That's interesting. I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, people have to take baby steps. Like you said, you got to just kind of ease your way in, I think. I am not afraid to ask for what I want because, again, the worst thing anyone can say is no.
Right. So, you are an anomaly is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
A lot of us are just stifled with self-doubt. And when you have so much self-doubt, you feel insecure and you feel scared of asking, right? You feel you're being rude, you feel you're being domineering, pushy, all those negative connotations. And so the idea is if you can figure out a way to navigate where you're not asking for these ginormous things and just little simple things, calling up your self-service provider and being like, hey, I want to change my service, because what other service you have that's a little bit more cost effective. We all get stuck paying for these phone bills that are with a couple $100, $300 a month because for years, not because there's nothing available that's cheaper, because there are, but we just don't think about it, or we just don't want to bother with it. So those are little things that you can do just to stand up for yourself and to put yourself in a situation where you're asking for something you want that is very trivial. It helps you when you're in a relationship, asking for the kind of relationship you want, the kind of love you want, the kind of job you want, right? Most people don't even ask for the job. They just go on LinkedIn and they see what's available versus going to the company that they really love and they really feel like they jive with and seeing if they can potentially have a position there. It's about curating your life and designing your life that fits you versus the opposite.
I love it. That is great advice. And I completely agree. And as you say this, I'm thinking back to all the times when I just asked for random things and people would say, how did you make that happen? And I'd say, I don't know. I just asked.
Exactly.
That was it.
Exactly.
It just seemed like a good idea. And I just wanted to see what would happen.
Exactly.
I love it. I love it, Jen. Well, this is great. I love all this. And you're right. No wonder we're friends. This makes sense now.
It all makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I know you have to run and go pick up your kiddos, so I don't want to take all day. Where can folks find you?
They can find me on, guess what? Instagram at The Real Jen Cohen. They can subscribe to my newsletter at jennifercohen.com and my book, Bigger, Better, Bolder.
Yes. And your podcast.
Oh my gosh. And my podcast, Habits and Hustle. Yes. And your episode's coming up, I think, really soon.
Oh, awesome. You have so many good guests on there. It's a really great podcast. So
thank you.
Awesome. Well, I will send everyone to the appropriate links in the show notes. And as always, if you guys like the show, please go rate, review, and subscribe. Make sure you follow Jen on all the platforms because she does a little bit of different stuff everywhere. And it's always very interesting. And thank you so much for coming on the show today. Thanks for listening to the Dr. Tyna Show. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson and mixed by Mike Fry. Theme song is by John the Guilt. You can watch the full video version of this podcast inside the Spotify app or on YouTube. As always, you can email the podcast at podcast@drtyna.com. That's DRTYNA. And if you like this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. You can also find all of my offerings on my website at drtyna.com. For more shows by my team, go to wellnessloud.com. See you next time, and thanks for listening. This podcast is for general informational purposes only. It does not constitute the practices of medicine, nursing, or other professional healthcare services, including the giving of medical advice. I am a doctor, but I am not your doctor. No doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of this information and the materials linked to this podcast is at the user's own risk. The content on this podcast is intended not to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice from any medical condition they have, and they should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions.